Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7. We're at episode number 1660, and today we are moving on from Galaxy's Edge for the time being. We are going to talk about Star Wars Celebration today, and about what has been transpiring, developing, and going on behind the scenes as they get ready for us 80-ish days and counting away. And as far as the big updates go, well, first of all, something that probably we all expected to happen is actually, in fact, happening. Steve Sansweet, the man behind Rancho Obi-Wan, is coming back to Celebration, and there is going to be a big display of stuff that Steve is curating from the Rancho Obi-Wan archives. He is bringing a number of amazing Star Wars artifacts to Celebration Chicago. That was a pretty neat walk-through time the last time I was there at Celebration Orlando, and so I expect this one will also be rather remarkable in its own way, too. Another thing that I guess you could say we expected in its way, or at least this is indicative of it, because we still haven't gotten the schedule for Celebration Chicago about what's going to happen on the particular days, but the 11th, that one we know is a bounty hunting collectible day, and so it's really basically a shopping day. It's not a day for major panel programming or anything like that. But on the podcast, we've talked about the fact that it's very likely Star Wars Resistance will be a big feature at one of the days of Celebration Chicago, that they will have the major morning panel for Season 2 of Resistance. And as a result, you would imagine that some Resistance guests would be there as well. And so this is certainly a sign that we're on the right track, because Christopher Sean, Scott Lawrence, and Susie McGrath have been confirmed for Celebration Chicago. They would be the voices of Kaz Ziono and Jarek Eager and Tam. Oh, shucks. Now Tam's last name just slipped out of my brain. Kavora, I believe. Anyway, so those three are going to be joining the festivities. And additionally, we also have James Arnold Taylor, who's the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the audio double of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And also we have Matthew Wood, who is the voice of General Grievous. So we have some Clone Wars representation. And that would seem to tie into the Clone Wars saved situation, that they might consider doing a panel about the upcoming final season of the Clone Wars that's going to be debuting on Disney Plus later in 2019. So yeah, I can certainly see a situation where that's also a major panel, though, you know, we still don't know what the operating schedule for Celebration Chicago is, and we probably won't know it for another couple months or so. And speaking of voices, there's also one other one, this one being a video game voice. Although I suppose you could say that James Arnold Taylor and Matthew Wood are video game voices in their way, because I think they've done the voices of characters in video games too. But in this particular case, I'm also putting in the list Janina Gavankar, who is the voice of Iden Versio for Battlefront 2, and in particular, that story mode of the video game. So, you know, that's where she shows up. Anyway, so there is your voice talent for Celebration Chicago that's been announced so far. And even though she has not been announced yet, I don't see how Ashley Eckstein is not a part of Celebration Chicago. So I imagine that announcement is coming later. And you would think potentially that Matt Lanter, who is the voice of Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars, would also be a part of Celebration as well, considering this final season coming up. So stay tuned. I think we are not done with the announcements on voice actors for Celebration Chicago so far. There have also been a number of authors that have been announced for Celebration Chicago. And yeah, that's a rather long list. One of them I will call particular attention to is Alexander Freed, who has previously written the adaptation of Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, and also wrote the first Battlefront novel, Battlefront Twilight Company. He is the author of the upcoming Alphabet Squadron novel, which was just announced on StarWars.com as being the first in a trilogy. So there will be an Alphabet Squadron trilogy. Whether Alexander Freed is actually writing all three novels in the trilogy, that has not been officially confirmed yet. But you know, the only other trilogy that's happened so far is the Aftermath trilogy, and it was all written by the same author, Chuck Wendig. So I think that the default assumption would be that Alexander Freed's going to write all three Alphabet Squadron novels, but you know, you won't know for sure until it's officially confirmed. So yeah, let's just work on the assumption that he probably is and roll with it from there. And the other authors that have been announced so far come from the entire spectrum of Star Wars storytelling. So the adult novels side, including Claudia Gray, who is writing Master and Apprentice, which actually comes out the day after Celebration ends. Also, Timothy Zahn, whose Thrawn Alliances is already out there, and Thrawn Treason is the one that's coming later this year. We're also going to have Delilah Dawson, who wrote the Phasma novel, and wouldn't it be nice if they announced that she's going to be contributing something else to the Star Wars universe that we'll find out about at Celebration, like maybe something related to the journey to Episode 9. I think that would be a good, fun announcement. And Delilah's done shorter form stuff too, like Perfect Weapon, which was the Bazine Natal ebook that came out around the time of The Force Awakens as well. Zoraida Cordova, who wrote one of the stories in From a Certain Point of View, so there's another, short form author who will be appearing there. Also, some young adult writers, including E.K. Johnston, who wrote the Ahsoka novel and who wrote the upcoming Queen's Shadow. She'll also be attending the festivities. And going even younger, you have Cavan, C-A-V-A-N. Mr. Scott, I'm sorry if I'm getting the first name pronunciation incorrect, of Adventures in Wild Space, Cavan Scott, and also Justina Ireland from the Flight of the Falcon series that's currently rolling out. Lando's Luck was one of the earlier novels. She's going to be there. And going still younger to Jeffrey Brown and Katie Cook of the Search Your Feelings picture book, and Jeffrey Brown, of course, of all the wonderful, Darth Vader and Son and Vader's Little Princess, and all sorts of other wonderful books that he's done for Star Wars as well. So all of those authors are going to be present at Celebration. And does that mean that we know about all of them? Well, I don't think we do, because we haven't even dived into any of the, for example, DK books. So you would think that folks like, say, Jason Fry or Kemp Remillard would show up and, be a part of the festivities as well. Cole Horton, Trisha Barr, Adam Bray, like those folks who have also been involved in DK publishing works. You would think that they would probably pop up there as well. But again, we only have some of the announcements. We don't have all of them just yet. And the big fan props have been announced as well. Those are the enormous items that are being constructed, in some case vehicles, and in some case actual sets that you can kind of walk into. And there will be not one but two Millennium Falcon lounges on display, and chances are for photo ops at Celebration Chicago. One of them is the New Hope era Millennium Falcon lounge, and one of them is the Solo: A Star Wars Story era lounge. That would be, of course, Lando's lounge. And there will also be a very large X-Wing, a very large TIE fighter, and also one of those tanks from Rogue One that we saw rolling along the streets of Jeddah. So that will be there. There's also going to be an Endor bunker situation with a speeder bike. I love those things. And additionally, some sliding doors from the Death Star, and also an Emperor's throne room situation with his chair there. So a lot of very magical things being built by folks from the US, from Canada, from Germany, and from Belgium as well, and that are making their way to Celebration Chicago. Oh, shucks, there was one other thing I forgot. So I'll tell you that after I say, hey, thanks for subscribing if you already are, and if you're not, hey, please consider doing that. And also, I hope you'll consider supporting the Daily Dose of Star Wars joy I'm bringing you every day, weekends included, by joining the community at patreon.com/SW7x7. So one of the other fan props that I forgot to mention in that laundry list is the Tantive 4 corridor, which obviously is, originally famous from A New Hope, and also made famous again in the end of Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. So you'll be able to get a photo taken around that iconic setting as well. And that is going to do it for our update on Celebration Chicago for now, and we'll be keeping an eye on new developments there. And as our plans for Celebration Chicago, my plans for Celebration Chicago, come to fruition or start, getting more fleshed out, then I'll share those with you here on the podcast as well. So that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.